Hey everybody, this is Dillon. I am sitting here with world famous vegan chef Jason Wyrick, and I want to talk to Jason today about his vegan transformation and also the amazing work he's doing locally here in Phoenix, and he's got big plans to expand beyond Phoenix too. So welcome to the interview. We're here with Jason. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing the last few years, and I want to get into your transformation, but tell us, just intro your delivery service that you've been doing locally to give us a start.
So yeah, it's actually pretty cool. I have a meal delivery service just like everybody else seems to have now, but I was the one that started the first vegan meal delivery service in the country that's still going. So I've been doing that for 14 years now.
Wow.
Shipped all over the country. It was the first one to ever ship out across the country, but I'm based here in Phoenix, and I love the Phoenix market the most. Sorry, everyone else, but in Phoenix, I can deliver freshly prepared food. I have the food made on the weekends. My drivers go out every single Monday. The food's fresh. Nothing's frozen, nothing preserved or anything like that, and the meal is completely prepared. So it's not a meal kit like you'd get from, say, like Purple Carrot or Blue Apron or one of these other companies that ships out ingredients that you still have to cook. The meal is ready to go. I call it heat and eat.
Right, perfect. So, okay, before we talk more about your business, which we'll definitely come back to, tell us a little bit about your old life. What you used to do before, how you used to eat, how you felt. Because I remember the story. I actually met Jason at a dinner that he cooked for at with Dr. Neil Barnard.
Yeah.
And it was a PCRM dinner, and this was before Neil Barnard was a celebrity to me. So I didn't have a chance to be starstruck during the dinner, so I acted very calmly. But you made this, and we just happened upon this invite because somebody canceled, and you put together this amazing oil-free meal, and at the time I was like, oil-free? Why oil-free? I'm vegan, I'm healthy, I comply with the China study. Yeah. Anyway, the first truly oil-free meal I ever had was actually with this man.
That's cool.
In February of 2016, which is funny because at the time I didn't think much of it, and then from there it was a month later I think that I read The Starch Solution, and then my mom had this cholesterol scare, and we went full in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to this guy again now that I understand it.
That's cool.
And so anyway, at that dinner you told a story, and I wanted to hear that story now. It included you driving and falling asleep driving almost, and having to pull over, and some of these health issues you were going through. I didn't mean to spoil the ending. Or not the ending, but the beginning. But go ahead.
No, and I'm glad you brought it up, because like, imagine like this high school kid, just like rail thin athletic high school kid. That was not me as an adult. That was me when I was in high school. And I ate terribly when I was in high school, but I was a teenager, so I'm burning a ton of calories. I was in every extracurricular activity you could imagine. I was playing basketball, I was doing all these sports. And so even though I was eating, honestly, like Burger King and Pizza Hut and stuff like this, I wouldn't say my health was great, but I was at least thin. And then as I got into college and I stopped playing all those sports, I kept eating that way. And so it's funny, towards the end of high school, I noticed like I would start to get fatigued when I shouldn't be.
Okay.
In fact, I'd be on the basketball court and I'd start to get just a little bit fatigued, and I was like, well, what's going on? I was like, okay, maybe it's just like being a teenager or whatever, but I don't think that was it, because as I moved into college, I started gaining more weight and my fatigue increased, and then by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was full-on type 2 diabetic.
Wow.
I weighed about 330 pounds. So I'm 6'3", pretty big guy, but in high school I weighed 200. And in less than 10 years, I put on an extra 130 pounds on top of that. Wow. It was horrible. My eyesight was failing. My joints hurt. I was depressed all the time. And you mentioned like the driving thing. It was so bad. I'd be driving down the freeway and I'd be fine. And then all of a sudden, like my eyes just felt heavy. And then the rest of my body felt like it just powered down within a few seconds. And it was scary because I'd have to pull over on the side of the freeway. sometimes I wouldn't even be willing to make it to the exit. I'd pull over on the side of the freeway and I'd take a 5-minute nap. And it turns out that was my blood sugar was so high that it was sending my body into this state where I had to rest.
Wow.
It was horrible, and I finally got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Ironically, in a hospital. I was in an emergency room, and I was getting treated for an infection that was on the back of my neck. And infections are one of the problems that diabetics have. And it was just out of hand, and the infection became life-threatening. So I put in my entry form, I wasn't diabetic because I was in total denial. Sure. I suspected it, but I was in denial, so I didn't want to admit anything. And then after the surgery, the doctor comes in yelling at me, why didn't I put that I was diabetic on my entry form? And I was like, at that point I had to admit it. And it was a couple days later when I went and saw a general practitioner, had my blood sugar tested, was told I was basically gonna have to take medication for the rest of my life. And at this point I'm only 27.
Wow.
And I was like, honestly, I was like, hell no. I'm under 30 and you're telling me I have to take meds for the rest of my life. There's something wrong. This can't be like some sort of
random disease
defect, right?
Yeah.
I knew it had something to do with my lifestyle. It hadn't turned out it had everything to do with my lifestyle. And so, so I was fortunate. I had a friend who had just reversed her diabetes a couple months before I got diagnosed with mine. She had done it because she was in the same boat. She was told she was going to have to take medication the rest of her life. She was a year younger than I was, and she also was like, no way, there's got to be something else. So she found John McDougall's books. So Dr. McDougall, and this was in 2001, and by then Dr. McDougall had already had several books out talking about diet and diabetes. So she went on his program, lost a bunch of weight, cured her diabetes. And so when I got diagnosed with it, I was like, I'm not taking medication for the rest of my life. This is ridiculous. And I just decided to change my lifestyle. I did the same thing she did, and it worked.
So you started with a McDougall sort of program.
Yeah.
Which was just oil-free, whole food, little added salt and sugar when you wanted it.
Yeah, yeah. It was oil-free. It was a whole foods diet. The funny thing was, probably the first 2 weeks, I was miserable because I was like, I loved cheese. Giving up meat, I was like, whatever. I gave up meat before Thanksgiving. I was like, yeah, I don't care, whatever. But the cheese just trapped me in something. And so I just resented having to change my lifestyle. And so the first 2 weeks were really difficult. And then what I did was, which actually, and some of the physicians are now saying is okay, and some are like, no, never do this. I gave myself a cheat day. Okay. And so what I would do is every Wednesday I would go to my favorite Mexican restaurant, and I would pack down, they had all-you-can-eat cheese enchiladas, and I'd eat like 14 cheese enchiladas. I mean, it was stupid ridiculous. And the rest of the week, I was whole foods plant-based. And I noticed like my health was improving, and as my health improved, my body didn't want the cheese enchiladas as much anymore. But what that cheat day did was it gave me the psychological freedom to be vegan the rest of the week. Right. And that helped immensely with that transition. And then after just 2 months, instead of doing it every week, I would do it every other week. And then it was once a month. And then after just a few months, I remember I ordered that last plate of cheese enchiladas, and they came out 2 at a time. And I looked down at the cheese enchiladas and I'm like, what am I doing? Because these don't taste good anymore. And they hadn't tasted good for a while. I don't feel good after eating it. And I pushed them away, never ate them, paid for it. And that was the last time I had ever had cheese. And so it went from 6 days of doing a McDougall program to 7 days of doing a McDougall program. And my health just kept improving and improving and improving. So it was funny, I needed that little initial step of doing the cheat day to get me over that psychological hump. Right. And then pretty quickly it went away. And I've been vegan for 17 years now. Wow. So that's fantastic. Never look back.
I think it's important to remember how different we all are. You know, I talk about Dr. Lyle a lot in a lot of my videos, and just how different people can do it differently. And some people have no problem at all going completely cold turkey and just never going back to it again, and they're, you know, super steadfast, and others need to feel like, I often promote, do it for 30 days. You know, do a total honest 30 days and then see how it went, but don't tell yourself it's forever yet. Allow yourself some leeway. I think you're kind of referring to those kinds of psychological differences.
And I wish that that someone had been around 17 years ago when I did this to say that about the 30 days, because I didn't really need a cheat day specifically. I needed the psychological freedom to know that maybe this isn't forever if I don't like it.
Right.
And that's all that I needed. And this was so long ago that I had done this, that those tools weren't around for people.
Like going from, you know, unhealthy, doing this thing forever, and just being told you can't do it again.
Yeah.
Period. No exceptions. That can be really hard for people.
That's really hard. The other thing I found out was, which actually from Dr. Barnard, was that cheese mimics, the protein in cheese mimics the effect of opium.
Yeah.
And I was like,
about that.
Why when I gave up meat did I have absolutely no problem giving up meat, but when I gave up cheese, I was having these symptoms that junkies had. I had, like, my hands shook and I had headaches and I was irritable, and I was like, what's going on? And when he told me that, and it was actually at that dinner that we were at, when he told me that, it all clicked, and I was like, I was an addict and I had no idea.
Yeah. Crazy. That was a crazy dinner for us.
Yeah.
I remember it so vividly. So tell me more about, you know, your first few years, I guess, where after you dropped that cheat day, was that it? Psychologically you were good to go, whole food?
It was funny, I did that, and I had this amazing transformation. I mean, I went from someone that was basically given a slow death sentence to someone that was fit and healthy, and honestly healthier than I had ever been since I was probably like 9 or 10. Wow. My energy, I mean, I went from sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day to sleeping like 5 or 6 hours at night and being totally fine with it. I'd go out and I would go lift weights, do yoga class, and then hike South Mountain. Wow. And I had, like, you know, I had these bodybuilder friends at the time, and they were, you know, I was never like it, but they were the guys in the gym that were like, and they'd slam the weights down and everything. And they'd go and they'd lift, and they were torn up for 2 days. And then here was me, who was going in there and leg pressing 1,000 pounds. And my strength, by the way, increased a ton because my recovery increased when I did that. And then I would go out and do all these other activities. And I'm like, there's something here. And I knew I could make a difference in other people's lives. Yeah. And the best way to do that was to make people happy. And that was through food. So I quit my job. I was a director of marketing at a tech company. Taught myself the professional end of cooking, because I had learned how to cook pretty well before that. But I taught myself the professional end of that and became a chef, because I knew for me the key was, if I could eat good food, it was easy to stay on the diet. And if the food was terrible, I was tempted to eat something that was not that great for me. So if I could teach people and feed people really great food, it'd be easy to be healthy.
So when you say you had already gotten good at cooking, was this before the health scare?
It was before the health scare.
You had already kind of knew some basic techniques.
Yeah.
So when you first changed, you were cooking for yourself pretty much steadily?
Pretty steadily. Now it's funny, because going plant-based was way different. So I went vegetarian first, and there wasn't a huge difference in the cooking techniques that you have to use for that. But then going plant-based, and especially no oil, it was like learning a new language. So I had to reteach myself how to cook. But fortunately, I had a foundation before that.
When you first started and you made the switch, were you sort of into going to the doctor and seeing how you were improving? Were you able to track your blood work, for example, to see how fast the diabetes was eliminated? Or did you just kind of, you knew what you were doing? I
could tell. So what I did was, like, within 2 weeks, my energy improved and my eyesight improved. Within about 3 months, pretty much all my symptoms were gone. So I didn't need to go see the doctor to know that I was getting better. But I did go and see a physician. It was probably 9 or 10 months after that. Totally different physician. Didn't tell them anything about my history. I wanted to see what they'd say. no hint of diabetes.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Awesome. So tell us more about, that you referred to the impact that you want to make with getting other people into this lifestyle. So inform us what you're working on and how you want to carry that out.
So I've been teaching classes for forever. I started the first vegan catering company in Arizona. I actually have the longest running vegan company in the whole state now. I started that in 2004. I've taught classes forever. I published the first vegan food magazine in the world called the Vegan Culinary Experience, which I did that a while ago, and that ended a few years ago, but that was fun and led me into the delivery service. So I've been doing a meal delivery service for a long time, and people get a week's worth of meals delivered to their door on Monday. My drivers show up, they put the meals out, they leave them in a cooler filled with ice packs, and then people have really healthy, really outstanding meals to eat for the rest of the week. But to me, that's the best way to keep people healthy, because you can provide them something that activates their pleasure center because it's good food, and you can provide them something that keeps them healthy. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to think about it. So that's the easiest way to keep people healthy, but obviously I want to do a lot more than that. And so now I'm getting into the restaurant business. I've got my first restaurant opening up in downtown Glendale called Casaterra, and it's the state's first fine dining vegan establishment.
Awesome.
And I've got a couple food trucks opening up and a couple of restaurants on the horizon, in addition to just Casaterra. And all of these businesses are going to work together to promote each other and to help people keep living a healthy lifestyle. So, some of the restaurants are there to just get people great food or introduce them into eating plant-based food. And then as they move through that and they want to get into it more, they can visit the restaurants more, or they can get on the delivery service and just have my plant-based meals every single day of the week.
Such a great concept that you're able to use this space after hours to work on the delivery side of the business. I mean, you're just utilizing your kitchen space to the max.
It's all about efficiencies.
Yeah. Fantastic. Tell me, one of the biggest concepts that we talk about in my group is social pressure. The mechanics of getting the food right are relatively simple. Like, you only have to learn it once. So I do a lot of cooking videos, and people understand, how they can create good food relatively easily. But the real challenge is now when you introduce the real world into the equation.
Right. That's the way it always works.
And when you're going to, say, Thanksgiving this past week, and you've got social pressure and questions, and you're showing up with food to a dinner or what have you. Talk a little bit about some of your experiences with social pressure along the way.
Sure.
People pushing on you, and did it impact you? And then you're pushing on others, if you will, to sort of give them the same realization you had, like your friend gave you when you first switched your way of eating.
Right. But it's funny. I think food is the end product. We treat food sometimes as the only product, but food is really the end product of all this other stuff that goes into it. And the first part of eating is actually your psychology, and the final part of eating is the nutrition. We treat the nutrition as the only thing that exists often, but there's all the psychology that goes up front. And obviously one of the big things we deal with is social pressure. We get it from friends, we get it from family, we get it from television or comedians making jokes about vegans, or because
Totally.
it's not cool to make jokes about certain other groups, but it's totally cool to make jokes about vegans still.
Sure.
So there are all these different factors into going into getting someone to make a good choice on their plate. For me, it was tough at first, especially when I went vegan, because I went vegan when I lived in Fort Worth, Texas, and the nickname of Fort Worth is Cowtown. And there weren't that many vegans then, and so I was always getting grief over my food choices. And it was easier for me because I had health issues that were really motivating me. Without that motivation, it would have been even harder. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of grinned and bared it for a little bit until I realized that the people saying that didn't really know much about food at all. They were just regurgitating what the television had told them or their parents had told them, and their parents were regurgitating what someone else had told them without really much thought into it. And it gave me, and then I was like, oh, and duh, I used to be that person myself.
Totally.
So when I figured that out, it gave me a little more compassion for them, and it made it easier for me to resist the social pressure to not eat healthy at that point, because I realized it was more about them than it was about me at that point. And then I think some of us go through this phase where we become the evangelical vegan.
Right.
Right, so we go out and like we have to share the news with everybody.
Yeah, it's this amazing magic pill.
Right.
Just take it.
Yeah.
And they don't take it.
And they don't take it. But you do it, and it's like you're like this kind of blunt instrument just trying to hammer people all the time with this. And then at least for me, I figured out, yes, I still need to share that message, but I need to be better about it. I need to find a more effective way to do it. And I realized I can get someone a little bit through argumentation, but you can't get most people solely through argumentation. You have to lead by example.
Totally.
And so I realized if I keep doing this, I'll be a great example to those other people. And ironically, that takes the social pressure off me to not be vegan, because these people that teased me a little bit at first are now coming to me with questions about how to eat healthy plant-based food and how to heal all these other problems that they're experiencing in their 40s that I've been able to cure.
Right. So you've allowed yourself to become the person people are going to come to when the time is right for them.
Yeah, so those people that pushed on me have now become the people that are coming to me.
Yeah.
And I think when you understand that, one, you can't reach every single person, but you can help a lot of people by being a good example, it takes that psychological pressure off yourself. And it does more good in the world because you seem, well, in fact, you are more positive about your choices and people resonate with that. And you're successful with your choices and people resonate with that.
Beautiful. So you have a 4-year-old daughter. Can you tell us what it's like to raise a vegan baby and up to 4 years old and beyond, and how you see that going and everything?
It's honestly, it's kind of cool.
I bet. Yeah.
At first I was worried because it's my only child. Of course, I was a new dad. I'm like, am I doing anything right? Am I doing anything at all right? And food plays a big part into that. And there's still that moment where, like, I've been vegan forever, and I've seen all the success that I've had with it and the success that other people had. But I was like, should my daughter be vegan? But it was like a second, and then I was like, of course, I'm being an idiot. But you know, I still went through that, even as like a proponent of this in the vegan community. I still went through it, and my wife went through it. But it was one of the best choices we made for her, because she's 4 years old, and she's taller than other kids her age. She's more athletic. Her brain is more developed. And all those concerns I had about her physicality went away. And I either tell people it's the diet or it's good genes, and they can tell me which one they prefer.
Right.
But they always realize that it's probably the diet part of it. I mean, my parents had concerns, and my mother-in-law had concerns, and friends of the family had concerns, because none of them are vegan. And so they're all like, are you sure you want to raise her vegan? And then after that first year, they were like, oh, you did the right thing. And
the pregnancy too, I bet.
Yeah.
They're all super concerned.
Totally concerned. But you know, after that year went by, everyone realized she turned out great.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything in her diet that was causing her any problems. But actually, going back to the social pressure, we also worried that there'd be social pressure on her, which there is.
Yeah, I want to definitely hear about that.
So, you know, she's been in school for a little bit, and we were like, what do we do when the other kids have cupcakes? Because obviously they're loaded with sugar and dairy and all this other stuff. And so we decided we want her to eat healthy vegan, but we can't be completely stringent about it, or else she's going to be totally ostracized. And so we make her vegan cupcakes when the other kids have cupcakes. But we try to limit it. It's like if they have candy, the other kids in her school, they'll eat an entire piece of candy. She'll take a lick of a lollipop and say, that's enough. So like one lick and it's done.
Yeah.
Which has been really, really interesting and cool to watch.
But at 4 years old, she's probably getting to the point where she's starting to grasp that she's vegan and her feelings about the animals and things of that nature. Tell us about that a little bit.
She asks all the time. She's like, is this vegan? Is this vegan? Is this vegan? And she makes her grandparents ask the question and everything. She's actually really excited about being vegan.
I bet.
And I think part of that is because we make being vegan exciting, as opposed to a limitation. So I go around the country and I teach a lot of kids classes. And I teach classes for kids with certain metabolic issues. And almost none of them are vegan, but they have to follow a vegan diet because of their genetic disorder that they have. And the parents that are fussy about food have kids that are fussy about food. And the parents that are excited about food have kids that are excited about food. And I think us being excited about vegan food makes her excited about vegan food, and it doesn't become a detriment. And I noticed in her school, because of her attitude, and honestly because she has 2 chefs as parents and we make food for her, the other kids want to eat her food.
I bet.
And the other teachers want to eat her food.
I bet. That's awesome. Very exciting. That is Chef Jason Wyrick, everyone. This is just an introduction to Chef Jason. We are going to be back together, hopefully even cooking together in the kitchen here. And so check Jason's new concept out at thevegentaste.com. That's the delivery service.
That's the delivery service.
Not the restaurant.
And the restaurant is Casaterra.com.
Casaterra.com for the restaurant. But the Vegan Taste, that's the service that's been around for 14 years,
14
did you say?
years.
Amazing, fantastic. I'll put a link down below in the description as well. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Later.
Later.